Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me the time to present to you today. I wanted to let you all know that I am going to record this presentation, so I will provide that to Chris and the super users to disseminate to you, but if you want to come back and reference anything, you can have a copy of the slides and the presentation, or if you want to share that with anyone in your department, you will have that as well. So first off, congratulations on getting through the first implementation in Lee Summit of priority-based budgeting. I know we have a little bit left to get into the tools from the peer review side of things, but for the most part, all of the data in the tools is ready for you to take action on and utilize in your upcoming budget meetings. So I will go ahead and get into the meat of it. So when we talk about taking action on your priority-based budgeting data, we like to think about this as in 3 to 5 years, what are your needs going to be? You may have a program now that is dedicated to marketing, and some of that may be through print materials, and you may see that the need for that type of marketing or mailing out marketing materials, that may be decreasing as we get into an increasingly digital age. On the other side of that, you may see a program that's dedicated to digital security. The need for that to increase over the next 3 to 5 years is likely a reality. So thinking about what you're offering today, what's going to need to grow, and what may need to have some sort of transformational change over the next 3 to 5 years. So of course, the first question is, if we have new needs, how are we going to fund those new needs? So we have a framework that we call the Blueprint for Action to Fund the Future. And this is simply a tool from ResourceX to apply to your programs and to use at a department level and an organization level. So the first question is, do you in fact have new needs? Are there new programs that you want to tackle? Or are there current programs that need enhancement or transformation? So what can we do with that information? So we have 2 basic levers in this framework. The first is to look at freeing up and reallocating resources. And the second is to look for ways to generate new revenue. Again, through this framework, we've identified ideas for how to go about this. So from the freeing up and reallocating resources side of things, we have sourcing opportunities, looking for ways to partner both internally, cross-departmentally, but also looking at the community around you for opportunities. Is there a service that you currently provide that somebody else in the community could provide at a lower cost for you to be able to reallocate resources? Are there efficiencies available? And efficiencies can be any way that makes a program move more efficiently, whether that is looking at a process or looking at a technology, looking at just the way you offer that service. And then looking at service levels. So in the kind of mindset of looking at 3 to 5 years, what is the reality for an existing program? Is it going to need to increase over time? Or is it going to need to decrease over time? And then looking at the bottom side of the blueprint, looking at generating new revenue. Do you currently charge a fee for a program? If so, does it cover the cost? If not, should you be? Looking at insourcing as a revenue generating opportunity to bring some of those services that may exist in the community, but you do it better. So looking to bring in some revenue that way, looking at grant funding, and as a last resort, thinking about taxes and rates. So within this framework, I wanted to show you an example. This is from the city of South Jordan in Utah. This is a client we have been working with since 2016. In that 3-year period, they have identified that they do in fact have new needs. And in that same 3-year period, they've had a 1% growth in tax revenue. So when we think about how they have been able to accomplish new needs, they have had 18% growth in being able to apply revenue or resources to new programs, which totaled to a $10.2 million in increased investment in both service level increases and new programs. So how did they accomplish that from that $700,000 tax increase to a $10.2 million increased investment? Well, we walked through the blueprint with them, and from generating new revenue through fees, charges, insourcing, and grant funding, they were able to generate $3.5 million. In looking at decreasing service levels in some areas so that they could increase service levels in others, $1.5 million. In looking at applying efficiencies to some of their programs, $1.7 million. And looking at partnership or sourcing opportunities, $2.6 million. So an 11% increased investment from resource reallocation and a 7% increased investment from generating new revenue. So this is, again, is a client that we have worked with for 3 years, and we have gone through iterations of their program inventory to really hone in and make sure that we got all of the data to a place where they were able to take this action. And so here's an example from the city of Salem, Oregon, who is about even in where you all are in your implementation cycle. So Salem has a $16 million increased investment need, and they are looking for ways to meet that need. So again, they're in the same boat you all are in. They're a first year client with ResourceX, and they are inspired by the work that was done in South Jordan, but they're wondering, what is the reality? How can we accomplish something similar? So we did an exercise with them. Chris Fabian, our CEO, actually went on site, and they did a commenting exercise. So I will walk you through this exercise in a few moments, but in the tools, you are able to look at them from the program perspective and identify opportunities that you could take action on. In 2 days with 10 meetings, so individual meetings with 2 departments each, they had 44 participants from the organization. They came up with 127 program-specific opportunities. And it's not simply identifying the opportunity, which is, looking at regional insourcing, looking at efficiencies, looking for ways to enhance services and ways to reduce services, but it's also describing how to accomplish that. So again, in 2 days, 127 opportunities. Certainly not all of those are going to be acted upon immediately, but it gives them this wealth of information for ways that they can positively impact their community through taking action at the program level. So one of the ways that they were able to take action with these programs is through our program reports. And again, I will walk you through the steps to identify where to find these, but this is something that they took into meetings with their budget director and the city manager with, we found these opportunities, we've identified how we would take action on them, and now, we can have the conversation about whether or not this is the right time to make that step and take this action. So that is just one example from somebody who is in the similar shoes as you all. So you've now seen the successes that South Jordan has had. You've seen the process for the city of Salem. And now let's really talk about how we can get there in the city of Lee's Summit. So we're going to look at the data that you all have worked so hard to create. We're going to talk about insights that we can make based on that data, and then we're going to talk about taking action. So looking at the data, insight, and action approach, with the data you've created, simply going through and identifying programs and allocating costs to them, you are able to more transparently discuss what that program provides to the community, any potential trade-offs or partnerships, what kind of workforce changes may be required or necessary as you think about the lifetime of that program, and looking at that program through performance measures. One interesting story from the city of Duluth, they have had record-breaking snowfall in the last 2 years, actually, and a newspaper reporter was looking at the city of Duluth, the neighboring city of Superior, and they wanted to know how much each city had budgeted towards snow removal. Duluth, a client of ResourceX, was able to look at their programs, and they identified, the cost from their snow removal, from their salting program, and from their fleet maintenance program. And they were able to tie together that in a matter of minutes for what the cost of snow removal was budgeted to be. And then they were able to identify also how much they'd already spent. From the City of Superior side of things, they weren't able to come up with a total cost for the program of snow removal or the combined programs. And they had to, they were looking through their line items, and they were able to report on how much gas they'd used or how much they budgeted for the fuel line item, how much they had budgeted for the fleet repair and maintenance line item. And it was less of a successful communication process, whereas Duluth was able to get through their communications office that information very quickly. Looking at the next level of data, so talking about scoring. When I think about scoring, there is a numerical value associated, but what this is really creating for you is a next level of data. You will now be able to say what is in high alignment with your overall results, what is in lower alignment with your overall results, but also a level of description, knowing in a centralized database what the level of mandate is for the programs you offer. Which ones have cost recovery? Which ones is there a potential for partnership? So using the scoring process as a way to create a next level of data. So an example with regard to scoring as a next level of data, looking to the city of Rio Rancho. This is in New Mexico, and they had a crossing guard program where the city was providing an officer from their police department to help as crossing guard for the independent school district. Now, when it came to looking at the cost of this, they had to consider the cost of providing a police officer to assist with this program. They looked, there was no mandate that the city needed to provide this, and yet they knew that without providing this, it would have a negative impact on the community. So what were some of the levers they could look at? Well, they could look at a partnership with the independent school district to say, can you help us to recover some of the cost for providing this officer? Or is this really the best way for an officer to be spending their time? Could we look at an independent company to provide a crossing guard? Is that more cost effective? So being able to have that conversation and being able to identify this type of program as something that is maybe not in high alignment with the overall goals of the city, but still an important program, and they needed to find a solution. Moving on to being able to look for insights. So I believe when we were in Lee Summit over the summer, we showed you what the present site would look like. And right now it is populated incompletely, but you can still go see it, but it will be updated once we have all of the peer review data there. But this is a way for you to view more holistically the entire organization's programmatic information. You will be able to see all of the programs for every department, how much of the budget is associated with that, and how in alignment it is with the goals of the city. So one example for how one of our clients utilized this is the city of Lansing. They had a report of 38% of their rentals were unsafe. So what levers did they have to look at? They went into their present site, went into their table view, and searched for any programs that had the word inspection in them. They could then see from those programs what personnel costs were tied to those programs and what non-personnel were tied to those programs. They knew that rentals were important to the city, that it was the demand for these was going up. So they needed to make sure they could look at what was the cost recovery for that particular program. Did they need to hire more code enforcement officers? Did they need to increase the fee for an inspection, or maybe increase the penalty if the landlord fails to register? So all of these questions could be asked and answered utilizing the Present site. So as you are considering looking at the data for your city from your login screen, which you all are very familiar with, I believe. If you're not, we can certainly make sure you have access. But clicking on the green Present button to view your Present site, which looks like this. So this is to help you explore and communicate your data. This is a very visually simple way to see all of the programs from the entire city. Just a few slides on how to use it. So the first tab on your Present site is this Summary tab. You'll see that there is some incomplete data, but it will get populated. So spending towards your priorities. This just shows how each service in each of the result areas, how the total budget is being spent towards each of those categories. So again, programs may score highly across multiple areas, but this is just showing the budget impact towards each one of those priorities. If you click over to the second tab, which is the tree plot, you'll see the size of the box reflects how much of the budget has been allocated to that program. And then the darker the shade, the closer in alignment with each of those individual result areas. And you'll see the tabs across the top, which have the result information in them, are colored to match the tree plot as you click through different results. As you click into this information, you are able to get to specific program info. So clicking into a program, you will be able to see the total cost breakout, personnel versus non-personnel. Then you can look and see specific personnel information, specific operating cost information, and then you are actually able to provide some feedback here. So this is not the exercise of commenting that we are going to talk about in just a few minutes, but if there is feedback that you have while you are exploring the Present site, you can enter it here in the suggestion box and it will come into a centralized Excel format that I can share with your super users. So any feedback that you have, you can enter it here. But now let's move on to what we can do today. So with the data that you have at your fingertips, what can we start to work towards as you are preparing for your budget meetings? So thinking about the blueprint as the framework for conversations, first saying, do you have new needs? Then saying, what options do we have to accomplish those needs? And then within those options, how specifically can we take action and accomplish those opportunities? So applying the blueprint, we can do this in the tools through this program commenting, similar to the exercise from Salem, Oregon. So in your program costing tools from the dashboard, you simply click into program costing and then click to toggle to program costs. So if you hover over those 5 icons, the center one with the 2 arrows will say toggle program costs. It will take you from the view that many of you are accustomed to seeing from going through the costing exercises to the total program view. First of all, this is just a new view for many of you who are accustomed to looking at budgeting only from the line item perspective. You are now able to add to that knowledge of the budget by looking at the program cost totals. So looking here and just saying, this is my list of services that I provide and the total cost there. But if you do click on the gear, it will pull up this box, which will allow you to enter yet another level of data that will tie directly back to the PBB blueprint. So again, the areas that we are looking at, sourcing, looking at both external and internal opportunities for partnership, looking at efficiencies, whether that is through technology or a process change, looking at service levels. Will we need to increase this service or enhance this service? Or are there ways that we can provide this service at a different level? And then on the generating new revenue side, are there opportunities for fees and charges, or is there an opportunity for a grant? So these will line up with the program comment in that drop box from the bottom left corner of this page. So you will see that we have a direct tie for sourcing. You can choose partnership. Efficiencies, we just have marked as other, because there are oftentimes many ways that people interpret efficiencies. So just select other, and then either a service level increase or service level decrease, and then cost recovery. Now, once you've selected that, looking in the box to the right of that, to enter the specific information for how you would want to accomplish that opportunity. So again, if we're selecting other for efficiencies, that's not very helpful in guiding us forward without providing this information for how you would want to accomplish that. Once you have identified a program with one of these comments, when you go to that program cost view, the comment that you identified will be tied to that program by color. So partnership is purple. If you're marking something as a need to increase a service level or enhance a service level, it's green. Cost recovery is orange, decrease red. But that way, when you come back to reference your priority-based budget data, it will be easy to identify those areas that you marked for an opportunity. Then once we have your data complete in the tools, you will have access to this report functionality. So it is available to you currently, but if the peer review data isn't complete, it won't download properly. So once we have that done, you will have access to this more readily. But from this report tool, you will see you will be able to come in, and in that program comments section, it's the section right above download, you can choose to include this section. From here, it will, if you check that box, it will tie any comments that you made in the program costing tool to the report so that the header will update to match the opportunity that you identified. And then you have the opportunity under include program information to include any comments and then those budget notes that you entered for how you would like to take action. These could be printed out and taken with you to a meeting, or you could simply utilize the data within online PBB through that program cost view. But this is the most comprehensive download for PDF download for your data. So you have the opportunity to include all program information, all cost information, and all scoring information. You also have the opportunity to exclude any of those pieces of data depending on the focus of your needs for that particular report. So as we think about how Lee's Summit is going to move forward with their PBB data, we took some inspiration not only from Salem, but also from the city of Littleton, Colorado. So they did a project, which they called the Littleton Pick 3 project. And how they moved forward was each department identified 2 programs where they thought there was an opportunity to take action. And then their city manager actually came in and identified a 3rd. And that was the task given to each of the directors was what opportunity can we identify for these 3 programs? And then how can we accomplish that? And they took those into meetings at the beginning of this year. So drawing on that, but not duplicating that, we are looking for Lee's Summit for each one of the departments to pick 3 programs. Just identify 3 programs that you can go in and assign a comment to. Once you've assigned that comment, explain how you intend to accomplish that particular comment, and then you have that data to bring to any upcoming budget meetings in March. and to share with the rest of your department, to share organizationally. And so that is the goal, I believe, is to have these 3 programs identified and commented on, and so that you have them for your budget meetings in the next couple of months. Okay, that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. Again, these slides and a recording will be available to you, but I believe I have been recently joined by Eric Keck, who is our VP of Client Success, and I am here and available to you if there are any questions that we can answer while we have you.
Any questions?
Well, so as this training go, for those of us who don't, we have people who do our budgets for us, so they get this training too.
So yeah, that's the purpose of the recording of it. I can also, if you guys feel it's necessary, I can set up some times in the ITS training room to essentially just show them how to use the tool. It's really simple, but I can walk through that with them if we think it's necessary.
Okay.
Is there any guidance from the PBB team or from the city manager on how we should select those 3 programs? Is there a goal that we're trying to achieve?
Speaking for myself, I think that with this first round of data that we currently have, I feel like rather than for us to tell the departments how they need to use the data, because there's been questions about the data, to be quite honest, we want the departments to look at it themselves, to think about their experience, their conversations, and come up with the proposals themselves.
I provide an example. When we were putting our programs together, network services is one of them. And when we started thinking about all the things that go into that, one of the first things that hit me was we spend north of $50,000 a year on maintenance for our switching hardware.
Oh.
Now, there are other providers that are not Cisco that do not charge that amount of money. So one of mine will be network services, and the comment will be, can we provide these same services without having to spend that $50,000? Go do some research, make some determinations that whether we can, and then if we can, great. Then we follow through and we get that done. But if it's not possible, then it's something we can't. I think there was another, what was the right of way example?
Yeah, so another example is we have a temporary traffic control permit in engineering that we issue a lot of those permits, and we don't charge any money for those at all. So, and it was set up that way initially because it was more about safety and wanting people to have proper traffic control. But is there an opportunity there for us to recover some of the money that, or some of the, we have resources that we're spending reviewing those. We have an engineer who reviews every single one. We have administrative staff who are entering all of that and issuing the permits. So is there an opportunity there to recover some of those? So.
When are we supposed to have all the data input ready to look at?
Hopefully soon. Essentially, I would guess within the next week or two. We'll let everybody know when the stuff's been uploaded. We're just waiting on a few teams to finish up. I think we've got like 11 of our 17 teams have got all their data done and entered, and in order for us to be able to look at it, we need all of our teams together. So we're still working on finishing that.
Once all that's in, are we as a manual team going to take a look at a discussion about that, or how that looks organizationally and departmentally?
Are we going to have are we going to go through the PIC3 program, and then are we going to set aside time for maybe a real quick high-level overview of all the PIC3s and all the departments?
Well, I was thinking just the results in general.
Gotcha.
Prior to doing the PIC3, because I honestly have no idea what the results are looking like organizationally.
The big picture organizationally, what does our PBB report look like? How much are we spending on level 4 versus level 1?
I kind of feel like
we need that.
Prior
Yeah.
to
Going deep.
I would say also, just based off of some of the comments that we've received about concerns about the data, some of the 3 comments that we're asking departments to come up with regarding programs don't necessarily have to be about where does something rank within a quartile or the score. It can be, as Steve mentioned, the experience of some of the conversations that people had as we went through it. For example, are we offering a program now that maybe we're not sure why we offer it or why we started offering it, or maybe we started offering it a while ago, and do we continue to offer it? We're not mandated to do it. Do we have to offer it at that same level of service? So, I mean, although I do think that the scoring and overall where things are ranking is important, I believe it will be more important in future years as we are able to refine the programs, refine the data, and all of that stuff.
So I think if we could have a general overview organizationally of the PBB report, acknowledging that it's still, I'll use the term, that it's still wobbly, you know, that it's still finding its refinement. That's good. And then the PIC 3 will allow us to begin giving us a sense that there's some functionality to it, even as we're refining the bigger picture. Kind of a blend, then, isn't it? But I agree with Ryan that if we could have the big picture, not that we're going to, I'll say, put stock in it and start making huge budgetary decisions based upon that. It'd just be good to start getting the sense of what it's shaping up to be. And then the PIC 3, you're kind of identifying this already. When you say PIC 3 programs, program is a very broad term. It could be a revenue enhancing program. It could be a resource reduction program.
So everybody went through and created a program inventory off of their budget, their detail lines, all that stuff. They put those together for a program inventory. It can be identify 3 of those programs of either ways like, you know, maybe we're doing something that's really important, but whenever people did the costing exercise, they were really surprised at how
much resources
it's using, or how many resources it's using. Oh, it could be that we're doing something really important, but maybe we realize we need to put more resources towards that because it's it's an important thing that we offer to the community. So I mean, that it could be. So that's why there's the service enhancement or whatever, and then there's the decreasing service for that level as well.
And these program conversations don't necessarily have to be all nice and tidy and say, hey, in this next budget year, boom, this is what we're going to do. She mentioned a 3 to 5 year time frame of thinking. That, I mean, it'd be great if you come across that, but this can also be, we've identified this in the next 3 to 5 years. This is what we're going to be working toward.
I see this, and maybe I'm wrong, so I'm asking for clarification plan, is potentially becoming our expansion request process in the future.
I feel like, and we've kind of had some early discussions on this, I feel like it would be important to, whenever we do put forward expansion requests, to have a systemized approach. And it would make sense to me to fund things that are in higher alignment, or that will go towards programs that are higher alignment with our strategic plan and the things that we've used. So this could be a tool for us once we get our data more refined and stuff like that.
For this year, since we're still getting our legs under us, it's probably do it the old-fashioned way.
Right.
Maybe you could tinker with it this way if you want.
I think it could, regarding expansion requests, it could almost be like our capital improvement plan. We could actually start creating a 5-year expansion request program where when we get really good, hopefully it's that 5th year that we just keep adding on, but then we make adjustments as we go. But wouldn't it be neat if we had a picture, like you're going to need something 3 years from now, and it's starting, but you're starting a conversation with it today, and as we get to that 3rd year, hopefully we're prepared for it, or we acknowledge that there is a greater need and you readjust yourself. As opposed to, to be crass, as opposed to just having a food fight every year of what crumbs are left over, and we're all scrambling to say that our need is more important than somebody else's. I saw that, Dina. Guess what I am.
Yes, guess what?
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say from our experience, we have, I think, the value of PBB obviously a process that we're going to continue to go through, but it's the conversation that we've had within our division, and just, you know, when you're talking about some of the programs, we offer, Public Works offers a lot of programs and services. It seems like every year people want us to do more and more and more, but with the same or less. And so you start looking at, I know some of them have already been, you know, brought up in other venues, but, you know, things like block parties, I know that's being addressed through the
Special events.
process. But, you know, we spend a lot of staff time on block parties. Ag mowing is a program that we talk about all the time, and it's one of those things, like, how did we get here? Why are we only mowing agricultural property? Having some of those conversations
Rezone that front.
has been one of the best benefits of PBB for our department, and it's without even looking at any of the data.
And I think as the city manager, what will happen for me is that I can communicate to the political interests in a more well thought out way than just, right now, my responses might be, we don't have the resources for it, sorry. And instead I can say, here is a strategic, comprehensive way of thinking about things. And when you measure it, does it really rise compared to everything else? And so it's not a no, it's really, well, let's go through a thought process together and see what happens. And it gives a little more ownership and partnership with the elected body, as opposed to, we start charging for the block parties, and I get a call from a council member saying, well, we used to never do that, why are we doing it?
For instance, in our department especially, there's a lot of functions and activities that we do that traditionally we have not charged for, so it's always kind of been assumed that's been covered under the property tax levy, but are all of these programs to be assumed as that, or do you charge some fees for a lot of the things that we do? So a lot of potential conversations we have.
So the point of this is, one, to get us familiar with what we could be creating immediate benefit of this tool today. I think it's a nice balance, because we're not saying, hey, now that this tool is used, boom, we're going to throw it onto the budget and our budget decisions are going to be made. We're not there, but we also need to be finding ways that it can start guiding us in some of our conversations and decisions without full-fledged, this is how we're going to do budgeting from here on out. So it's a nice blend. Are you all supportive? So the programs have already been identified through this process. Are you all, as individual department heads and division leaders, are you comfortable with being asked to do a pick 3 with your teams and then maybe bring those back sometime in the future? I have to see nods. Yeah. Is that okay, Joe? Are you all right with that? Especially if we do it during the peak of your party.
I mean, I'm with Brian. It's like, it all sounds good, but until I start seeing the data and start getting some kind of context to all this, it's hard, you know. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure we can get to a pick 3 pretty quickly. But
we'll do that too.
Yeah, I think seeing this data is going to be critically important for me to start going, okay. I mean, all the sides, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me yet.
Because it's not applying to you.
Yeah, it doesn't. I can't, you know, how's this affecting departments?
Yeah.
So that's been a conversation we recently had, was getting all the budget techs, everybody that was part of the peer review teams to come back together to see what the results of all this work was. So that information I know is considered.
I think long-term future, after we get through budget and some of these other business processes, maybe May, June, July, somewhere in there, of doing a kind of pulling everybody together, management team, the budget techs that were a part of it, the peer review people, and just kind of sitting down and saying, this is what our data is, these are some of the things that came out of our Pick 3 exercise. Yeah. Just kind of showing the success of it, but also getting people the feedback of how can we make this better? How can we make, you know, knowing that this is an iterative process, how can we do a better job, whether it be communicating stuff or using the data or making it so it's not such a hardship on departments, you know, things like that, just getting feedback on priority based budgeting and kind of have a plan of how we can use it for our next budget cycle.
Well, Chris, if you could create a reasonable timeframe that we could present to the management teams of the comprehensive report of PDB to this organization, and then you've already mentioned to the, which I think is a great idea, is to regather everybody that worked and almost celebrate what has been accomplished and thank them and let them know that their work was of value. And then when you would want to pick 3 reports from each department.
Yeah, I think the pick 3, and you know how every year we, see my second year, but there was always the form that everybody fills out, what are your expansion requests, significant changes, things like that. On there at the bottom, we can throw in the, what are your pick 3 things, and those can be discussed.
So you would make that a part of the budget discussion process.
Yeah.
Pick 3. That what you're going to do is when the department heads prepare their proposals in the city manager's office, that a part of that form is going to have what out of the PBB process, please present your pick 3.
Yes.
Okay. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
All right. Good.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you for the leadership here on PBB too. Appreciate everyone. And Chris, especially you. You've put a lot of energy into making this move ahead. So
Thank you. And thank you to Liz and Eric who joined us for our call today. I think you're still on here.
Yes.
Liz, are you there?
I'm here, and I would just like to echo what Mr. Arbo said about celebrating how far you've come. You have put a lot of work into this, and I am really excited to see the Pick 3 exercise come to fruition. I'm excited to see the rest of the peer review data get in so that in that May, June timeframe, you all can all come back together and truly celebrate how far you've come.
all right.
All right. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you all.
Well done.
All right. Thank you.